July 8th, 2014. The digital timestamp on the closed-circuit television reads 9:30 a.m. We are looking at the interior of Varna Airport in Bulgaria. A young man in a yellow t-shirt carries a dark backpack and a heavy duffel bag. He walks with purpose, stepping into the airport's medical clinic. He does not look erratic. 45 minutes pass. The camera remains fixed on the silent hallway. Suddenly, the clinic door bursts open. The man in the yellow shirt explodes into the corridor. His luggage, his passport, his wallet, and his cell phone have all been abandoned on the doctor's examination table. He sprints down the hallway, throwing terrified glances over his shoulder. The fear radiating from his posture is absolute. He navigates through the terminal with desperate speed, violently dodging bewildered passengers. Another camera catches him outside. He sprints across the sun-drenched concrete, not stopping to flag a call or call for the police. He runs with the frantic energy of a prey animal escaping an unseen predator. Reaching an 8-foot-tall barbed-wire fence at the edge of the airport perimeter, he scales the metal fencing without hesitation and drops onto the other side. Beyond the perimeter lies an expansive field of towering sunflowers. He vanishes into the endless sea of yellow. And just like that, he is gone. He is never...
The story begins in Golden Sands, a Bulgarian seaside resort town famous for massive nightclubs and European tourists. On June 30th, Lars arrived with 5 friends. He was employed, healthy, and known as a level-headed young man with no history of mental illness or drug use. He was simply looking for a relaxing holiday. For the first 6 days, the vacation went exactly to plan. But on the evening of July 6th, a fracture appeared in the normalcy of the trip. At a local McDonald's, a disagreement broke out with a rival group of German tourists. The argument was entirely about football. Lars was a passionate fan of Werder Bremen, while the other men supported Bayern Munich. Insults were traded and voices were raised. Eventually, the tension diffused. Lars's friends moved on to a nightclub, while Lars chose to stay behind, stating he would catch up later. He never made it to the club. Lars vanished for the rest of the night, ignoring his friends' calls. When he finally returned to their hotel room early the next morning, he was physically altered. He claimed the men from the restaurant had
The timing was terrible. The group was scheduled to fly back to Germany the very next day. His friends offered to change their flights and stay behind, but Lars refused. He reasoned that he just needed to wait a few days for his inner ear to stabilize, take his prescribed medication, and catch a later flight home. It was a perfectly rational decision. On July 7, Lars waved goodbye as his friends boarded an airport shuttle. He was calm and coherent. But the moment his friends left, his environment fundamentally shifted. The doctor had prescribed an antibiotic called cefuroxime 500 to prevent an ear infection. Lars picked up the pills, checked out of the tourist-heavy resort, and traveled down the coast to the larger, grittier city of Varna. He checked into a small, inexpensive inn called Hotel Color. This single logistical decision isolated him entirely. Located in a working-class neighborhood, Lars was suddenly alone in a foreign city, unable to speak the native language, nursing an untreated head injury. What unfolded next inside the walls of Hotel Color defies simple explanation. Over the course of 12 hours, his behavior rapidly degraded from a... Sandra listened in horror as Lars spoke in breathless fragments. He told her he was hiding and could no longer stay in his hotel room because his pursuers knew where he was. Throughout the night, Lars abandoned the hotel and vanished into the dark streets of Varna. He called his mother again from the shadows, stating he was hiding in an empty field, lying flat to avoid detection. Security cameras inside Hotel Color captured pieces of this erratic timeline, introducing a chilling contradiction to the narrative. The interior footage shows Lars nervously pacing the narrow hallways, constantly checking over his shoulder. He stops at the windows, physically pressing himself against the walls, scanning the dark street for a threat only he seems to know is there. But the exterior cameras show nothing. There are no four men. The streets of Varna are entirely empty. Shortly after midnight, Lars sent a bizarre text message to his mother. Bypassing the subject of the assassins entirely, he asked a single, highly specific question. What is cefuroxime 500? Before his mother could provide a medical answer, Lars sent another chilling message. He claimed the hotel staff were involved, stating they had slipped something into his food, and he believed he was being poisoned. Somehow, Lars survived the night of terror. By the early morning...
But he had made it. He was physically at the airport with his heavy luggage, his valid passport, and his cell phone. He only needed one final medical clearance to board his plane. At this precise moment, the timeline collides with the haunting CCTV footage. Lars entered the office of Dr. Kosta Kostov, the official airport physician. According to the doctor, Lars appeared deeply distressed from the second he sat down. Trembling and breathing heavily, his eyes darted constantly toward the closed door. Dr. Kostov calmly explained that his ear tissue was healing well and signed the paperwork. Lars was officially cleared to fly home to Germany. It should have been a moment of overwhelming relief, but Lars was not comforted. He leaned forward and muttered, "I don't want to die here. I have to get out of here." Just when local police arrived, they assumed they were dealing with a frightened tourist who would eventually emerge when hunger or exhaustion took over. Tracking dogs were brought to the crushed wire fence. The dogs immediately caught his scent, following his invisible trail through the heavy stalks, moving steadily toward the nearby A2 National Highway. But as soon as the dogs reached the burning asphalt, they stopped pacing. They sat down. They had lost the scent entirely. It was as if Lars had simply evaporated into the humid summer air. The absolute lack of physical evidence remains the most maddening aspect of this case. No torn clothing was found on the barbed wire. No drops of blood were discovered in the dirt. Weeks later, the sunflower fields were entirely harvested and industrially processed. If a body had collapsed in that field, heavy farm equipment would have inevitably uncovered it. The fields were completely empty. Days turned into weeks, and weeks...
What if the men he argued with at McDonald's were involved in organized crime and paid street thugs to follow and silence him? Proponents point to his panicked whispering on the phone. You do not whisper into a receiver unless you genuinely believe someone is standing outside your door. Yet, Bulgarian police found zero evidence of anyone tailing Lars on the hotel or airport CCTV. In the infamous airport footage, he is actively running from an empty hallway. The immediate physical threat did not exist in reality. Which brings investigators to a much quieter, internal suspect, a severe medical catastrophe. During the altercation days earlier, Lars suffered blunt force trauma to his head. Traumatic brain injuries can be incredibly deceptive and lethally slow. Subdural hematomas can take days to manifest symptoms. When pooling blood finally increases internal pressure on the brain, it can cause catastrophic personality changes, profound visual confusion, aggressive paranoia, and absolute terror. Could the deadly combination of a silent, swelling brain bleed and the stress of foreign isolation have triggered a complete psychological break? Then there is the third theory. It is perhaps the most disturbing explanation of all, centering entirely around a small prescribed pill, cefuroxime 500,
Combine a rare adverse chemical reaction with the anxiety of a foreign country, a ruptured eardrum, and a lingering concussion, and you have the biological recipe for a perfect storm. Under this theory, Lars was locked inside a waking nightmare. His traumatized brain violently misfired, generating a highly detailed, deeply convincing alternate reality where everyone wanted him dead. The innocent construction worker was simply the final hallucination that broke the threshold of his sanity. But even if we fully accept the medical theory of acute paranoia or rare drug-induced psychosis, it entirely fails to answer the final, impossible question. Where did his physical body go? A human being can sprint with incredible speed on pure adrenaline, but that biological energy eventually burns out. A man suffering a catastrophic psychological break must eventually collapse or seek water. Lars was wearing a bright yellow shirt. He had no survival gear, no money, and no identification. If he succumbed to the elements in the surrounding area, his physical remains should have been easily found. If he wandered the highways, someone with a smartphone should have captured a definitive photograph. Instead, there is only a deafening, uninterrupted silence. The stark security footage